but the global pandemic means we have to wait for that. Instead, we couldn't have July without a celebration of the world's biggest bike race. We start today with the first ever virtual Tour de France. Here we tell you how things will work. Basically, think of all the leaders' jerseys of the Tour de France as a team contest, and along the way, riders will be accumulating points. Today, there are 4 sprints in the men's and women's race. You can see the points that are awarded for each of those sprints, and a team captain will be nominated in each team who will carry the jersey after they take it, if indeed they do. Today there are 4 Queen of the Mountains in our first race as well for the famous polka dot jersey, and we have an award for the best young rider classification. That's for riders who were born after January the 1st, 1995, and again that's a points-based competition for the first 10 under 25 riders at the end of the stage. We'll also have, as always, the team classification. That is all the points combined for all the various classifications of this virtual Tour de France. And you can get involved as well. If you're at home, a Twitter poll will be conducted during the race, so keep an eye on Twitter if you're on it for the 3 most aggressive riders during the stage. Zwift is the platform we're on. It is a game, but it is still about human endeavour. We have power-ups along the route that the riders pick up and can use, and as the race goes on, we'll explain that to you. Let's take a look then at the lineups of the women's teams. They are the first race of the day. 16 teams, 63 riders taken to the start. Some big names. 2020's Chloe Dygert is the biggest name in that first list of riders. Here we have the teams as we run through them. We just saw the name of Elisa Longoborghini on the route there as well. Let's take a look then at the profile. It's a little bit of a hilly one. It's rolling. There are 4 intermediate sprints along the way and 4 Queen of the Mountains with a total stage length of 36.4 kilometers. We look down then on the peloton of riders, and riding on the front at this moment in time.
Bonjour à tous,
Five for Georgie.
Pour cette première étape du Tour de France virtuel. La course est lancée dans le monde de Watopia. Distance totale à parcourir 36,4 km. 64 concurrents ont pris le départ, représentant 16 équipes. Hello and welcome to Race Radio for Stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France. The race is currently underway in the world of Watopia. Total distance to be covered 36.4 kilometers. 64 ladies have started the stage, representing 16 teams.
The voice of Seb Piquet, the voice of Radio Tour, as we go through our first intermediate sprint point. And there are the riders. It looks like Tanya Ereth of the Canyon SRAM team was the first rider across the line. So Seb Piquet gets us started, as he always does on the Tour de France. He's sitting in the red car, always in the race, and keeps everybody informed of everything that is going on. So we've gone through the first of our intermediate sprints. We have, of course, got the avatars of the riders, and we'll explain to you as we go, if you've not seen Zwift racing before, what is going on. We're on to the cobbled section, which the riders go through after that intermediate sprint. So Tanya Ereth looks like she has taken those first points. We'll get confirmation in a moment. You'll see above the riders these little icons from time to time, and let's just run through the sprint first. So that was the first Watopia sprint of the day. So it was Ereth from Faulkner of Team Tibco, and then Leah Dixon of Team Tibco. Behind them was Amy Peters, who scored 7 points. So Tanya Ereth taking an early lead in the intermediate sprints competition. So you'll get used to looking at these avatars, and on the right hand side of the screen you can see the different positions. Below the names of all the riders is the description of their watts per kilo. That gives you an indication of how much power they are putting out in comparison to their weight. And it gives you a good sense of how everybody is doing within that group. Now, Zwift is an incredible platform, and during the lockdown, many riders have actually been on Zwift and doing hundreds or thousands of kilometers. So many of them are no stranger to this platform at all. But the wonderful thing about it is this is not just about pure power on an indoor trainer. All the riders will be at home today, but there are lots of tactics and lots of gaming involved in this event as well. So the riders really do need to know how this platform works. Now, on some platforms that are used in terms of indoor training, there's no real drafting effect that can be used to help your performance. When you're in a peloton in the Tour de France, you're sitting in the wheels, you're conserving around about 30% of the energy that you would do if you were sitting on the front, like Chantal Black has just been doing there and April Tacey has just done. But now, the drafting effect, the algorithm within Zwift gives you drafting, which means that you can sit in the wheels and you can save a little bit of energy. We're looking at Magnaldi there of the Cerazit WNT team. She's there in a nice setup outside on the balcony at home, getting a little bit of assistance with what is going on from one of her friends to make sure she knows exactly what's happening. And here is her statistics. So she's rolling along at around 80 revs per minute. Slightly out of the saddle at the moment, putting in a big effort at the moment. And 34 kilometers an hour onto the next climb. Her heart rate very high, 173 beats per minute, and now the revs are starting to drop off. So she'll be able to work her way in the group. When you're going uphill, of course, the drafting effect not quite so useful, but when you are sitting in the wheels on the flat, it certainly comes into very good effect. 31 kilometers to go. We've got 4 laps today of what we call the Watopia circuit. We've got 6 stages in total during the Tour de France over 3 weekends. And this course is an interesting one, and for riders who know Zwift very well, they will have ridden this course. Watopia is the virtual island in Zwift before every other land was built within this game itself. So now we have Richmond World Championship course, the Yorkshire World Championship course, and there will be stages towards the end of this Tour de France in France itself. And we will finish on the famed Champs-Élysées, and I've seen that already, and it already looks exactly like the Champs-Élysées itself. So today they're riding on Watopia. It's a punchy little course, some tough little climbs. There's some cobbled sections, and there's a very fast descent down in towards the finish of today's race, and we'll get the opportunity to look at that on a few occasions before we reach the finish itself. So Tanya Ereth took those initial points. She's a rider who knows Zwift incredibly well, rides for the Canyon SRAM team. As we just get some stats there of Kristen Faulkner, who rides for Team Tipco, going downhill at 53 kilometers an hour. And there is Kristen, keeping a good eye on what's going on. And you really do have to have your wits about you all of the time within this game, because if you let the gap go and you drop out of the draft of everybody else, you can have all sorts of problems. You also need to think about the power-ups that we just briefly introduced earlier on as to when you use them. So the riders have got some advantages they can use if they pick them up along the way, and they tend to pick those up at the arches of the sprints and the Queen of the Mountains and the finishing arch. So we'll see when they pick those up and how they use them. There's where we are on the course. Kristen Faulkner at the front. An interesting rider for Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank. She finished 5th on a stage of the Zwift Tour for All, which was another virtual race that took place during lockdown a few weeks ago. So she's got some form within this game, and she understands exactly how it works. And Team Tipco The American squad are a team that we should certainly watch out for over the coming 6 stages, because they won the Zwift Tour for All themselves. So it should be an interesting tussle between them and the other world level teams that we've got within this race. Coming up then to the first Queen of the Mountains, and a little bit of a sprint going on here at the front between a number of riders. Over the top, and it looked like a rider from WNT, I think it was McNaldy, who may well have gone for that with Josh Loudon. We'll get confirmation in a moment, but it looked to me like a sprint between Josh Loudon of the team of Drops, the British squad, and McNaldy, who we saw that shot of just a little while ago. Let's take a little look at the replay. There's McNaldy sprinting. A couple of riders using power-ups to try and get there, and it looked like McNaldy took it. So McNaldy takes it. Second place looked like Loudon from the replay. And Loudon, to me, used a power-up, an aero power-up, to try and get a little bit of an advantage. There's confirmation, so it was McNaldy from Loudon, and Tanya Erith still maintaining her position near the front. This is the end of the first lap coming up. We're now on to the descent, and a power-up being used by Chantal Black. She's used the aero power-up, so she picked that up underneath the archway. And that aero power-up makes her more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. So she's used that very, very well. Going down the descent gave her a little bit of advantage. It also saves the legs a little bit. So on the indoor trainer, the legs will just get a little bit of a rest by using that power-up. Coming up then towards the end of the first lap. Now as we go through the line towards the front of the group, Kristen Faulkner from Tanya Erith. Behind Erith is Nerlo. Also up towards the front is Elisa Longo-Borghini, the podium finisher in the Olympic Games. Now if you're watching the avatars here, look out for a number of different things. Watch out for the teams, of course, but see the little icons at the top. You can see the different power-ups that are coming up, and the little van that you see is a drafting power-up. It increases the draft effect by 50% for 30 seconds, so it gives the rider a little bit of a chance to sit in the wheels and draft with the use of less power on the trainer. You can see a little feather above one of the riders there on the left-hand side in that green circle. That's the lightweight power-up. Reduces your weight by 9.5 kilos for 15 seconds, so it gives you a really big advantage on the rest of the riders. We're on to lap number 2, and towards the front, Tanya Erith, there she is, riding for the Canyon SRAM team, was the winner of the Zwift Academy. That's how she ended up getting her contract with Canyon SRAM. There she is on the left-hand side. There's her stat. She's producing 235 watts at the moment. She rode this morning on Zwift nice and early, did 18 kilometers just to warm up. She's rolling along at 96 revs per minute. She rides on this platform an awful lot, and as you can see, the heart rate not super high, 157 beats a minute as she rolls along at 35 kilometers an hour. Interesting story of Tanya Erith. She was a doctor in a German hospital. She took part in the Zwift Academy to try and get a pro contract with Canyon SRAM. Never believed that she would. She won the Academy overall, and now she is a full-time bike rider. A very interesting rider to talk to. Looks like we've got a little bit of an attack going on, and it is Elisa Longo-Borghini putting in 8.5 watts per kilo. Now this is a very big attack. 11 kilometers covered. And Elisa Longo-Borghini is trying to go away. Now remember, for the yellow jersey, it's a team contest. There are 4 riders in each team. At the finish line, points are awarded. and the accumulated number of points for each team then give the yellow jersey for the leading team, and the team captain will wear it. So Longoborghini for the Trek Segafredo team with a furious attack, over 400 watts at the moment. Looks like she's not wearing a heart rate monitor, so we can't get an idea of just how much it is telling on her body as she goes away. You can see this is a big move from Elisa Longoborghini. Looks like she's in maybe the bedroom of the house. Putting in a huge turn now to try and break away from the rest of the group, and it looks like she is opening up a very big advantage. Well, it's a long way to go to the finish, 25.2 kilometers, heading her way over the bridge. So we've gone over the section of Watopia known as the S's. Now she's coming up to the intermediate sprint. Remember, Tanya Ereth took maximum points last time. Looks like everyone's coming back to Elisa very quickly, though. They've sensed the danger, and they come up to her extremely quickly. Tanya Ereth took second place, I think, in that sprint, so she'll have accumulated 19 points, and Elisa looks like she's starting to suffer a little bit. She's going to have to get back in the wheels very, very fast. Now, the drafting effect on Zwift, the rider in front almost gives you a cone effect of a draft. And Elisa used a power up there to make sure she stayed in the group. And if you get out of the draft, you really are in all sorts of problems. So we're on to the cobbles. These are near what we call the Italian villas, and we're just going past them now. And we'll go on to the climb towards the front. Magnaudi again comes to the front, ready for the Queen of the Mountains point. Suzanne Anderson is towards the front. In second place, the world champion of the Madison, a fantastic bike rider for Boels Dolmans, is Jolien Dora. Suzanne Anderson finished 7th in the World Championships 2017 and now rides for Team Sunweb. 23.8 kilometers to go. Now let's hear from the team director of Elisa Longoborghini. We'll hear now from Giorgio Bronzini. Giorgio Bronzini looking forward to a good race then for her squad. She knows she's got a really strong group of riders within Trek Segafredo. Jolien Dora up towards the front, a very, very good sprinter. Now you'll also be wondering, where are all these thumbs coming from? Well, within the platform, the fans are able to give riders thumbs up, ride-ons as we call them, and it accumulates in the back pocket of the rider. If you look at the back of the avatar itself, you'll be able to see the glowing blue, and the more thumbs up a rider has, the more it glows blue. 47 kilometers an hour. Just a reminder on the screen then, the hashtag is TDF United. Join us for that, because we're supporting 5 cycling related charities during this virtual Tour de France. Chloe Dygert now on the front. She's just gone back into the wheels. Chloe Dygert is an incredible bike rider, riding here for the American 2020 team. World champion of the time trial. She won that in Yorkshire last year. 7 times a world champion on the track and a silver medalist in the Olympic Games. See the way the group is moving around. There's a few riders just starting to drift towards the back of the group. Now, tactics will play everything in this event. Leah Dixon now towards the front. Let's take a look then and hear again from Giorgio Bronzini.
We are so excited to be part of virtual Tour de France event. I have a really big and strong team, so I hope to be up leading the races and why not the winning. And I believe in my girls, and everyone is keen to go for it.
Well, she does have a very, very good team here this afternoon. The team of Trek Segafredo, Elisa Longo-Borghini, Abby Van Twisk, Loretta Hansen, and their team captain on the road in the road events, Trixie Warwick, the German rider. Some little gaps starting to open in the group. Here's where we are on the course. We're coming up to the 16-kilometre point with the Queen of the Mountains beckoning in the distance. McNally again towards the front for WNT. This is a great performance by this rider. Also coming up towards the front now is Nerlo. Leah Dixon is also beckoning towards the front as well. Remember last time the positions were McNally, Loudon and Erith the first across the climb. We may well have just nipped over the top of that. We'll get the results. McNally was there. And now we're making our way onto the descent as everyone jostles together. Looks to me like McNally took the points yet again. 62 revs a minute on her indoor trainer. There she is. Still out the saddle. Just settling down now into the descent. 173 beats per minute. Beautiful background to her camera, isn't there? Riding there in the mountains themselves. She's got almost a little smile on her face. She seems to be enjoying the form that she's got this afternoon. Well, if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, this looks really interesting, you can actually set yourselves up with a home trainer. You need what we call a smart trainer. It talks to the game, so it makes the descents and the ascents as difficult as it would feel when you're out on the road. And then you join the platform and you can ride with some of the pros. And all the pros are on there and they pretty much all let you follow them. So you can join up with some of them on some routes. In fact, we are just coming to the Queen of the Mountains, so let's just see what happens. I thought we'd missed it. And as you can see, McNally uses a featherweight power-up, so this gives her a big advantage here. It makes her more light for 15 seconds. Has she timed the power-up right? I'm not sure she has. And it looks to me like Joss Loudon may well have sneaked past her on the line. So she mistimed the power-up. Well, to me, she had that perfectly in use. If she'd used that just a little bit later, McNally would have easily won that Queen of the Mountains. So we're getting a great competition here between McNally and Loudon. Joss Loudon, McNally won the first one. Confirmation that Loudon took the second. Riding for Team Drops, the British squad. A rider who came into cycling quite late and joined, just started riding local races in Great Britain. Showed how strong she was and the Drops team signed her up straight away. Fast downhill then. Here's the replay. So the featherweight drop, the featherweight power-up was used a little bit too early, maybe 2 seconds too early. Loudon came powering past her as the power-up went away. So it's going to be a good competition for the last two Queen of the Mountains points. Onto the descent. A few power-ups being used. There is Joss Loudon in the colours of Drops. This British team who had all sorts of problems last season when they lost pretty much all their sponsorship. They've had times when they've thought the team is going to fold, but they've managed to hold on. Varney and the rest of his team have done supremely well to keep this team together. Coming up to the end of lap number 2. We just caught a glimpse there of Loudon on the left-hand side using the burrito power-up. 25.5 minutes of racing have gone. We're at the midway point. Well, thanks very much for joining us. This is the virtual Tour de France, and indeed a very important moment for women's racing as well, because this is the first time we've seen a women's race on equality with the men's race on a Tour de France platform. So a little bit of history, and I know the women really are looking forward to these 6 stages of racing. The jostling going on as you would expect in a normal Tour de France peloton, but we've got a small number of riders now in this group. The big names are in here. Longa Borghini is there, Chloe Dygert is there. Chloe Dygert, the world champion of the time trial. Tanya Erith looking for a victory for her team. Joss Loudon riding very well indeed. Jasmine Doering is also in here for her squad, the team 2020 with Chloe Dygert. Jasmine Doering, bronze medalist in the Olympic Games on 2 occasions. 4 times a silver medalist in the World Championships on the track, a Pan American champion on the track. Things have settled down a little bit, as you can see. Kristen Faulkner wearing number 3 on the left-hand side. Now, every time we go up that Queen of the Mountains point, it looks to me like we are losing riders. 2 or 3 riders just coming back. Well, don't forget, throughout the race you can join me on Twitter as well, @AntMcCrossan, if you want to send me any of your messages. It's wonderful to be back talking to all of you. I haven't spoken on the microphone since February. There's the classification for the green jersey. 31 points now to Canyon Schramm, so they lead the points classification for the green jersey. Elisa Longo Borghini goes on the attack again. 43 kilometers an hour. And she's opening up an advantage again of 3 seconds. Elisa using her power to very good effect. But as I mentioned before, it's not all about power, this game. It's about the power you have in your legs, but it's also about your tactical knowledge, and that is the beauty of this specific platform and why the Tour de France has chosen to use it for its 6 stages, because you have to think things out as a rider the same way that you do when you are in a peloton itself. Longa Borghini, 351 watts, 32 kilometers an hour, pedaling along a high cadence, 100 revs per minute. Now Longa Borghini is looking to secure some more points for this Trek Segafredo team. The next intermediate sprint will come up at the end of the bridge. Elisa Longa Borghini of the Trek Segafredo team, Olympic Games podium finisher, winner of the Tour of Flanders, winner of Strade Bianche, and a bronze medalist in the World Championships, across the points line first yet again. Well, Longa Borghini has certainly decided that she's going to attack over that little climb, descend quickly, secure the points every time, as she is now caught by Hannah Ludwig of the Canyon Schramm team. And Lisa's really now got to dig deep and try and get back into that group. Does she have a power up to use? Working her way all the way through the group. Onto the cobbles. You might not believe it, but some of the smart trainers that these riders ride on actually do rumble when you go over the cobbles as well. Here's the replay of second place. I'm just having a look to see who that was. May well have been a rider like Jolien Dorda. So Longoborghini takes the first place. Daylight between her and the rest of the group. Tanya Erith was up there again in third place. Erith is doing very well for her team. Above some of the riders then, some power-ups being used. We can see the van power-up, which is Alexis Ryan using her specific power-up to just get a little bit more of a drafting effect. Remember that the van draft increases your draft effect by 50% for 30 seconds. The group has kind of come back together again. It'll be very interesting to see if it comes down to a sprint, who is going to take this. Suzanne Anderson towards the front, riding for Team Sunweb, the 21-year-old. 7th in the World Championships, as I mentioned before, a Norwegian rider. Across the next bridge. To me, Team 2020 have got a lot of riders in this group. They've got Shayna Paulus, Chloe Dygert is in here, and I think we've also got Yasmin During. Canyon Schramm, at least a couple of their riders in here, if not 3 riders in this front group. And going now towards the front, the Cherazit WNT rider, and that is Ana Santesteban. Only 13.5 kilometers to go. Now remember, there we are, there's the green jersey competition. So Canyon Schramm with 52 and Tipco on 33 now. On the front now is Dobell Hickok, 4th on a stage of the Zwift Tour for All. .9 kilometers gone. Here is Kristen Faulkner. And now a little bit of an attack going on as we see a couple of riders at the front. Let's take a look then at some statistics. This is rider workload, the most work done from the start of the race. Sanguinetti, Magnaldi and Dobell Hickok are the 3 riders who've done the most work. Magnaldi up towards the front again. Can she get this right as far as the power-ups and the climb is concerned? So Paladin is now up towards the front as well. Behind her is Joss Loudon. Joss Loudon looking for more points. Remember, in the first 2 climbs, Magnaldi of the Terazit WNT team took the first climb ahead of Joss Loudon. Second was the other way around. Loudon took it ahead of Magnaldi. And now it's all about this 3rd climb. Tanya Erith has also been involved in these situations as well. Not far away. There's the power statistics of Magnaldi again, who's one of the 3 riders who's done the most work. 174 beats a minute right now. Looks very concentrated, doesn't she? It's so interesting to see the setups of these riders and what they have at home. She's keeping a good eye on the screen. This team is a German team. Started off actually as a British-based squad, and then the German sponsors took it over and have really developed this team into something pretty special as an overall outfit. So McNaldy now making her way towards the front, and she's looking for the Queen of the Mountains again. This is the third of them. You can see the countdown at the side of the road. Everybody else is there. Who is going to take it this time? It's going to be this tussle. She's ignited the power-up yet again. She's gone with the featherweight power-up. Has she done it at the right time this time? You can see how much of an advantage it's giving her. It means that she's now 9.5 kilograms lighter as she accelerates away. Two members of the drops team are going for it as well, though. And it looks to me like Joss Loudon is again going to get the maximum points. Superb sprint by Loudon ahead of McNaldy. April Tacey was up there, and I think it was Hannah Ludwig this time. Well, at this moment, it is Loudon who is the head of the race as far as the Queen of the Mountains is concerned. Now on to the descent. Now you're actually on this descent able to go into the super tuck that so many riders use. If the descent is more than 5.5%, or actually 5%, then you sprint hard, get over 50 kilometers an hour, stop pedaling on your trainer, and you go into the super tuck like Joss Loudon is doing, as you can see. See, she's not even pedaling. She's got a chance to recover like you do in normal circumstances. It's like her mum's coming to check on her. And then you just have to kick hard, get into the group quickly. Joss Loudon's left that a little bit late to get into the group. She's really going to have to work hard, because if you don't get in at the right time, then you miss the draft of the riders and you are dropped. But she's managed to do it. So that was a lovely moment there where we got to see her in the super tuck. It gives you that chance just to recover, because this platform is so tough to ride on. Confirmation then that Loudon took the 10 points on the Watopia Hilly Climb 3. McNaldy was second, and Tacey of Team Drops was in third place. Coming up to the end of lap number 3. One more lap to go to decide who takes the first yellow jersey of the first ever women's virtual Tour de France. 9.2 kilometers remain. There's the mountains classification points on the right hand side. So Drops are leading with 9. WNT was second. Jarrett is it, WNT in second with 7. So it's a tussle between those two. 3, 2 and 1 points each time. So Loudon just has to try and secure first or second place on the climb, and she'll take it. Chloe Dygert up towards the front. Kristen Faulkner just used her power-up, which was the van power-up, the draft power-up, increasing the draft effect by 50%. Also in the group is Emilia Farlin. Well, let's hear now from the team owner of one of the squads in this group, from Team 2020, Nicola Cranmer.
2020 is super excited to be part of the virtual Tour de France hosted by Zwift. It's going to be such an amazing event for women's cycling. We get to be showcased on the biggest cycling platform in the world. That is the Tour de France. And the stages are very mixed. We've got mountains and flats, so we'll be looking at a different rider for each stage. For stage 1, I would say my pick would be Chloe Dygert.
No surprises that the team owner of Team 2020 picks one of her riders, Chloe Dygert, as the winner of today's stage. Dygert, as we mentioned earlier on, world champion of the time trial. She's been sitting in the wheels here. She rides Zwift a lot. Her team are a little bit like the Canyon SRAM team as far as riding this platform is concerned. They have a real alliance with them, and throughout the lockdown period the team has been conducting rides for their fans to join, their sponsors to join. Tanya Erith there on the left hand side, 190 watts, pedaling on at 94 revs per minute, 161 beats per minute's her heart rate. Tanya at the start of the season tends to spend a lot of time in Mallorca training. Really working hard now, knowing that we're only 7.5 kilometers to go. Just sitting in the draft. In front of her is Amelia Farlin in the group. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us for this virtual Tour de France. Don't forget to look at the hashtag on social media, TDF United. That is where we are looking to support 5 cycling-related charities. One of them is Quebeca, which is the African charity that is linked so closely with Team NTT. A few questions on Twitter from you, so thank you very much as we head towards the conclusion. Wendy, no Mitchelton Scott riders in the women's race, but they are in the men's race that will be coming up after this. Taking a look at who is in this group. Who can win this stage? Well, Jess Pratt is in here, another member of Canyon SRAM. She was the last winner of the Zwift Academy. As we head now towards the intermediate sprint, who is going to take it this time? A power-up used to secure that one. Chantal Black, former world champion. So Chantal Black secures some points for her Boels-Dolman's team. Now these riders are going to start to think about how they're going to get ready for the finish. And there are some powerful riders in here. The other question, of course, for everyone will be who has got power-ups left. And those come into play in the finishing sprint, of course. If you can use anything in the sprint, as we get confirmation of the Utopia Sprint 4, Chantal Black, or Chantal Vandenbroek Black as we should call her now. She'd recently got married, 10 points. Jess Pratt took 9, Faulkner took 8. And confirmation that the green jersey at the moment is on the shoulders of the Canyon SRAM team. Team Tidco in second, and Boels-Dolman's that little securing of points moves them into 3rd place. Aurelia Nerlo now on the front, riding for the CCC Live team. Now I know that the team director of CCC Live this afternoon on their Discord channel, because the riders talk to each other on Discord, which is a gaming channel, and they're in contact with their team director wherever they are in the world. Interestingly, this afternoon their team director is Ashley Moolman-Passio, who knows this platform extremely well. She told me beforehand she hopes that Soraya Paladin can do something this afternoon for CCC Live. Leah Dixon is also in this group. Leah Dixon, first a winner of a stage of the Zwift Tour for All. As we make our way down towards the 5 kilometre to go point, not far left in this first stage. McNaldy goes to the front again, looking for points for the Queen of the Mountains, being tracked again by Joss Loudon, I think. Also in here, number 24 at the back is Valerie DeMay. Drops in here with April Tacey. WNT or Cherazit WNT also have got a number of riders. Catherine Hammers is in here wearing number 122. Also in here, Emilia Farlin, don't forget her. She's in the white of the team of FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope. Chantal Black, I think Jorlin Daughter is also in here. Chloe Dygert moving up on the right hand side, wearing number 94 is Suzanne Anderson. So there's a little bit of a lull. Now when we look, the lull still means that these riders are putting out 7 watts per kilo for Elisa Longoborghini, which is a huge amount of power. Featherweight is engaged by one of the riders then, as we look at Doble Hickok from the rally cycling team. 4th on stage 4 of the Zwift Tour for All. She's really trying hard, isn't she, on this climb. 340 watts, 85 revs per minute for Doble Hickok. She's stayed in the group. Doble Hickok going downhill now. Now don't forget, we're getting towards the end of this stage. Please go on Twitter if you're on that social media platform, and you can vote for the most aggressive rider on Twitter. Look for the information on the Tour de France Twitter feed and vote for the most aggressive rider. The hashtag is TDF United. You can be part of making the decision on who is the most aggressive rider of the day. Only 3.3 kilometers to go. Who is going to win this stage? Still McNally towards the front, looking for points on the Queen of the Mountains. Dygert is always near the front now. Chloe Dygert, can she bring home a victory for Team 2020? It's a very important moment for these riders. The Tour de France platform, as far as women's cycling is concerned, is a huge platform for them. It's a great sport. It's growing all the time. And these riders deserve to be getting the coverage they're getting. McNally now looking, as she got a power-up. There's a featherweight power-up being ignited, and that's by Kristen Faulkner. You can see just above her head, the feather reduces her weight by 9.5 kilos for 15 seconds. Takes her up to the front of the group. Amy Peters is also in here for the Boels-Dolmans team. And you can see the ghost. One rider has put the cloak on. It makes you invisible for 10 seconds. Who has gone away? It's Chantal Black who used the cloak. So did Erica McNally. She's also used it. She moves up. That's a great move here by McNally. She's used her power-up, the invisible power-up, so the other riders couldn't see her attack. Now the lightweight power-up being used by one of the drops riders, which I think is Joss Loudon. Look, there goes Joss Loudon now. Huge attack by the drops rider. What a competition we've had between McNally and by Joss Loudon, and it looks to me like Loudon is going to secure the points. Oh, McNally goes. McNally takes it. Well, we wait then for the decision. Charatzit WNT may well have finished second, I think. Loudon should secure the Queen of the Mountains points, I think, for her team. Look at the mountains in the background for McNally. What a lovely place to be on your balcony, riding a Tour de France stage. Right, we are near the finish line, 1,300 meters to go. Who can take this victory? Remember, it's a tactical finish. If there are any power-ups to be used that are in the pockets of these riders, they will use them in the last few hundred meters. A little group now going under the red kite. 1 kilometer to go. McNally is in here. Faulkner is in here. Dygert is also here. Towards the front, Hannah Ludwig of Canyon SRAM. Leah Dixon is here as well. Leah Dixon of Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank. She's been a rider who's won lots of Zwift races. She knows exactly how this works. Confirmation on the left-hand side of the screen. The most aggressive rider is Elisa Longo-Borghini. She will be given the red number. Right in towards the finish, a swooping right-hand turn. 370 metres to go. On the front is Chloe Dygert, who puts her power up into force. Chantal Black is going to try and challenge her. So it's Dygert. Across on her right-hand side is Chantal Black, but Dygert is going for it, coming through the middle. Looks to me like it could be April Tacey of Team Drops. Tacey is going to do it. Tacey takes the victory for Team Drops on the first ever stage of the Women's Virtual Tour de France. What a sprint that was. Superb racing. Well, Chloe Dygert ignited a power up, but I think she did it just a little bit too early. What a stunning performance. April Tacey of Team Drops, the British squad. Here comes the sprint, the replay. April Tacey of Team Drops wins the stage. I think we'll just check the results and make sure we had the right rider, but I'm pretty sure it was her as she made her way towards the front. We wait for confirmation. It was so close across the line. Chloe Dygert put the power up into motion, maybe just a couple of seconds too early. Well, there you go. That's what virtual racing is all about. Let's take a little look as they sprint for the finish line. Dygert was up there, didn't quite get. They were all putting power-ups into motion for that finish. Big group coming in. Elisa Longo-Borghini then, the most aggressive rider of the day. Here's confirmation of the finish. So April Tacey takes the victory ahead of Kristen Faulkner of Team Tibco. In third place was Chantal Vandenbroek-Black of the Boels-Dolmans team. Leah Dixon of Team Tibco in fourth. Chloe Dygert of Team 2020 in fifth. And it was Tanya Ereth in sixth place. Canyon SRAM with a lot of riders in that top 10. Remember, this is a team competition, so the most points accumulated by a team will give you the yellow jersey. We'll wait for confirmation of the maillot jaune, the yellow jersey. Don't forget this afternoon we will also bring you the men's race, which is over the same course. Some big names in the men's race as well. There's the sprint. Dygert just fading away. All different power-ups. I think April put in a aero power-up as well on the run into the finish. Down in Watopia, which looks a little bit more like the start of the Tour de France we were expecting in Nice. Certainly does look like a Tour de France finish. When I saw this a few weeks ago, the first ever variation of this course, we had a little bit of a run through and all of us said, wow, this really does look like a Tour de France finish. It's fantastic. There is April at the end of that very tough event indeed. But what a sprint by this rider. April Tacey, congratulations on an absolutely stunning win on the first ever women's virtual Tour de France. Summarise your emotions for me now. That was some win.
I just can't believe it. I'm just so excited. I'm so happy.
Tell me about your tactics there, because it looked to me like as you came into the finish, you ignited the aero power up. Was that right?
Yeah, I had the aero power and I hit it with about 300 meters to go, and I just gave it my all.
How tough was that race compared to being out on the road?
It was pretty tough. Like, it was just really hard, and just up the hills as well. Everyone was like giving their all.
Well, congratulations, April. That is a big, big win for Team Drops. Your teammates and your team manager, Bob Varney, are going to be very, very pleased, aren't they?
Yeah, so happy.
Well, very well done. We enjoyed watching you. The winner of stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France for women, April Tacey of Team Drops. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What a win by that young rider, a young British rider who has ridden a little bit during her career as a rider in the races in the Netherlands quite a lot. She's ridden races like the Healthy Aging Tour and other races. She was selected to ride the World Championships in Innsbruck for Great Britain as a junior, but now she has beaten the biggest names in women's cycling on the virtual platform of the Tour de France. She beats Chloe Dygert, the world champion of the time trial. She beat Tanja Ereth. She beat Elisa Longo-Borghini, the winner of the Tour of Flanders, and other riders that are so well known in the world of women's cycling. That really was a very, very special performance by that young rider. Well, it won't be long until we get the start of the men's race, but of course we've got to summarise for you the different classifications so you know exactly how things stand. Hopefully you're getting to grips with what virtual bike racing is all about. A little bit like the simulated car racing we have, except in terms of bike racing, you absolutely have to put all the effort on. When I've talked to some of the pro riders who've taken part in men's events, they say this is even harder than riding a World Championship time trial at times, because you are absolutely on the limit the entire time. There is very, very little chance for any recovery at all. Well, the men's race will be held on the same route. Don't forget that during the men's race as well, you've got the chance to vote for the most combative rider. In the women's race, it was Elisa Longo-Borghini of the Trek Segafredo team. She certainly ignited the race quite often. But it demonstrates to you just how tactically you need to use everything to good effect as far as the tactics are concerned. So we're just waiting for the various classifications. And then we will make sure that we know who, of course, has taken the various leaders' jerseys. So we have got all the jerseys that we have in a real Tour de France, I guess we can say. Yellow jersey, for the leader of the general classification. On the finish line then, points were given, so 50 points for the winner, down to 1 point for the 25th place rider. The points are then accumulated and the yellow jersey will be given to the team and then given to their team captain. Let's take a look then, as we always do in a Tour de France, at the run into the finish. So Chloe Dygert was on the front. She put her power up into good effect. We look to see where April Tacey is. She was up there, and then just at the right time, she put her power up into effect. There she is. She puts the aero power up into use, and that took her away from Chloe Dygert. She pressed the button on the power up at exactly the right time. So as I was saying, the yellow jersey, a team competition, the most points accumulated by the team will give them the yellow jersey. So the fact that April has won the stage doesn't necessarily mean that Team Drops will be the yellow jersey holders. It's all about point accumulation. On the Tour de France, it's all about time accumulation. But this platform means that the racing can be very, very tight on some stages. So it's a case of just making sure that there was a different way of working out the classifications, and points seems to be the best way to do that. The green jersey, of course, will be for the sprints points classification. There were 4 intermediate sprints along the way. The white jersey for the best under 25 rider, which may well end up being April Tacey. And then the Queen of the Mountains, the polka dot jersey for the rider who accumulates the most points at the top of the climbs. And that was a real tussle between McNally and Loudon. Well, in a few moments we'll bring you the classification of today's stage. There's no doubt who the winner was. April Tacey. For British fans, she was first really noticed in Great Britain, where she finished second in a race called the Curlew Cup, which is one of the oldest bike races for women in the country. As we look down on the finish line, we will of course be going to the men's race very soon, because the men have just started on this first stage of the virtual Tour de France. We'll look down. Now to the men's race. The riders are out on the course. Let's take a look through. We'll bring you an update as to who has got the yellow jersey for women in a few moments' time, but the men's race is already on. 23 teams of 4 riders, so 92 riders taking to the start of the race. Some big names in this field this afternoon. Greg Van Avermaet, there you can see Michael Matthews, the world champion Mads Pedersen, Edvald Bosenhagen also in the group. And Gorka Izagirre of the Astana team. Here's the route that the riders face. And of course, it's the same as the women, so no changes at all. 4 intermediate sprint points along the way, and 4 King of the Mountain, sorry. Four sprints along the way at exactly the same points that we had in the women's race. And in this field this afternoon.
Bonjour à tous, bienvenue sur Radio Tour pour la première étape de ce Tour de France virtuel. La course est lancée dans le monde de Watopia. Distance totale à parcourir 36,4 km. 92 coureurs ont pris le départ de cette étape, représentant un total de 23 équipes. Hello and welcome to Race Radio for stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France. The race is currently underway in the world of Watopia. Total distance to be covered 36.4 kilometers. 92 men have started today's stage, representing a total of 23 teams.
Interrupted by the voice of Seb Piquet, the voice of Radio Tour of the Tour de France. And this is the men's peloton coming up towards the first of our intermediate sprints. There are 4 intermediate sprints. If you joined us for the women's race, the rules and the tactics are similar or the same, depending on how you use them. A big peloton of men though, so the drafting effect is even greater within this peloton this afternoon. In the field, just to run through some of the names for you as we keep an eye on this first intermediate sprint, which comes up at 2.78 kilometres. Mathieu van der Poel is in here. Greg Van Avermaet is also here. Alex Dowsett of Israel Startup Nation. Darrell Impey of Mitchelton Scott. Edvald Bosenhagen of NTT. Michael Matthews of Team Sunweb. Pavel Sivakov, Mikhail Kwiatkowski, all in the field this afternoon. Now we're getting towards the first of our sprints. 10 points for the winner, and again it's a team contest, so it will be about who has accumulated the most points for the team at the end of the race itself, and the team is given the jersey. Again, a few power-ups being used by riders, and this is Schelling going away at the front of the race now. So Schelling just trying to get a little bit of an advantage on the rest of the field. Big attack. But who's going to get across the line first? Looks like one of the NTT riders. Van Rensburg is going for this. Tyson now. Thiessen is going to take it, or Darrell Impey goes through, and on the line, looked to me like Darrell Impey took it. Yellow jersey, of course, stage winner of the Tour de France. Darrell Impey secures the first points, I think, there in that intermediate sprint, ahead of Thiessen. And I think Tiller was in 3rd place. But that was a big move by Darrell Impey to secure those first points. Onto the cobbles by the Italian villas. If you've just joined us, this is the first ever stage of the men's virtual Tour de France. We couldn't have July without a celebration of the Tour de France. There's Darrell Impey sweating away in Girona. It must be extremely hot there. That was a little bit of a grimace. Right in for the Mitchelton Scott team. They've had a few trials and tribulations in the last week. Had that sponsorship deal, which was apparently signed with a new foundation, and then Jerry Ryan, who's put so much money into Australia cycling in the last few years. He then took away the deal, and he has taken back over the team and changed the management around. So Darrell Impey, as you can see on the left, has got the power-up going, the van power-up, so that gives him an advantage. Putting in 437 watts now, 54 kilometers an hour. A little bit of a fast downhill section. till we reach the King of the Mountains point. Daryl's been riding quite a lot on Zwift over the winter time, over the lockdown, winter and during lockdown. He's level 23 on this platform, so there are different levels. You start at 1 and you work your way up, depending on how many kilometers you cover. Daryl did a lot of riding on this platform during lockdown. He's done 4,127 kilometers before the start of today's stage. Stage winner, of course, in the Tour de France. And he's joined us on some rides over the lockdown period. Less confirmation though. So Impey took the first points ahead of Thiessen of Lotto Soudal and Van Rensburg of the team of NTT in third place. So the African team, South Africa being very well represented here. A South African taking first place and a South Africa taking third place. Very good moment for the African riders. Canadian rider now on the front from Team Rally. This is Matteo Dalchin. And his teammate now trying to break away. Well, this to me is a big attack here from Dan McClay. One of the sprinters of the Arkea Samsic squad. Dan McClay maybe just used a power up to get away, puts in 8.3 watts per kilo. Dan McClay, before the start of lockdown, was becoming one of the major lead-out men for Nasser Bouhanni. Right, and Dan McClay is left behind there as another big attack goes on. McClay putting in 875 watts as Raphael Valls goes past him. This is one of the Bahrain McLaren squad. Raphael Valls, winner of the Tour of Oman in 2015. As he spins his way up the climb. Behind him is Gianni Vermeesch. Vermeesch is one of the top cyclocross riders. Member of Mathieu van der Poel's team. And Raphael Valls looks like he's going to be brought back here as he revs along at 82 revs a minute, doing 40 kilometers an hour. 6.2 kilometers already covered. The mountains points come at 7.5. And there is Raphael Valls there on the left-hand side. Swimming pool in the background ready to jump into when he gets off the bike, because it's going to be extremely hot. He's chosen to ride outside today. 515 watts being put in, 45 kilometers an hour as this peloton rolls along. So if you've just joined us now, we are on the Zwift platform, and the beauty of this platform is that drafting really does work. It's not just about pure power. So drafting works, and the power-ups, the 5 different power-ups we have, also mean that tactics and gameplay awareness are also very, very important for all these riders. You can't really just jump on this platform, have a go and win. You kind of need to understand how it works. Don't forget you can vote for your most combative rider today. If you look at the Tour de France Twitter feed, you can go on there, vote for your rider you feel is the most aggressive rider of this race. As we see Edvald Bosenhagen now arriving at the front. Huge attack on the right-hand side. This looks like maybe Philip Valsleben of the Alpecin Phoenix team. Going across the line first ahead of Raphael Valls. And it is Valsleben. Now, Valsleben is one of the top cyclocross riders in the world, a member of Mathieu van der Poel's team. Van Kiersburg goes to the front. Behind him is Freddie Avet, and he goes into the super tuck. And for those of you who've just joined now, the super tuck is ignited if you are doing over 50 kilometers an hour on a descent of over 5%, which this one is. And you just literally stop pedaling And if we saw a camera shot of the riders on this descent, you would see that they've stopped pedalling and they go really quick downhill as Mathieu van der Poel goes to the front in the super tuck. Confirmation then on Watopia Hilly Climb 1, it was Walsleben ahead of Raphael Valls. And we're coming down towards the end of lap number 1. Nicky Assant is up towards the front as well. Each lap of this Watopia course, which is a virtual land within the game, when we get to stage number 3, we will be in a virtual France, and we will finish on the Champs-Élysées. Peter Seri now takes over the pacemaking as we come up to the end of lap number 1. 4 laps in total, and leading across the line is Van Kiersberg ahead of Gorka Izagirre. Jonathan Castroviejo of Team Ineos was also up there. Mathieu van der Poel, here's his stats: 97 revs a minute. Heart rate is notching up towards 170, and he's going along at 50 kilometers an hour. There he is at home, out the saddle, working hard. And as you can see, what a lovely tribute there in the background on the shelf to Raymond Poulidor, his granddad, who passed away sadly a few months ago. There's the motivation of Mathieu van der Poel this afternoon, looking up at his granddad. And doesn't Mathieu van der Poel look honed and fit and ready for when the season restarts? Lovely shots of Mathieu van der Poel there. Well, Van der Poel looks very comfortable, just keeping the pressure on. 172 beats a minute. And the peloton on the right-hand side of the screen, a few power-ups being ignited. Van der Poel just dropping back a little bit, going alongside Daryl Impey. And on the front now is Dorian Godon, the 24-year-old rider from Agi Désert Le Mondial. Up there at the top left of the screen, the hashtag is TDF United. And we are also, during this virtual Tour de France, raising as much money for 5 cycling-related charities as possible. Third in the wheels is Freddie Ovett, the son of the great athlete Steve Ovett. Now rides for Israel's Startup Nation. Didn't choose to go with trying to be an athlete. He decided to be a cyclist instead. And he's done very well now, reaching the World Tour with Israel. He was a stagiaire at one point with the BMC team, which has now become CCC. Tends to train with the riders down in Monaco. And here's some stats on the screen of Greg Van Avermaet. 523 watts. Oh, this is hurting, isn't it? Look at that. If you think that simulated bike racing is easy, have a look at the face of Greg Van Avermaet. That is hurting, and hurting a lot. That was a huge effort then. 180 odd watts. Now he calms down as they go downhill. The fans in the game giving the thumbs up, the ride-ons to these riders. And we're getting close now to the intermediate sprint. Remember, Daryl Impey took the first one. Who's going to score the points this time? Another big sprint at the front. Looks again like a Mitchelton Scott jersey. Using a power-up as well. An aero power-up being used. Let's see, I don't know who was across the line. It was Impey again who took the points. Pretty aggressive riding from the South African. So he's scored maximum points so far. Each of the intermediate sprints, 10 points on offer. Van Kiersberg on the front, 52 kilometers an hour. So we've gone across the JWB bridge. And now we go on to the cobbles past the Italian villas. Confirmation of Watopia Sprint 2. Impey took 10 points. Seri took 9. Tiller of NTT was in 3rd. Murphy in 4th. And Nick Schultz of Mitchelton Scott is also in the group and took 5th place. So good job here by the Mitchelton Scott riders. They passed the waterfall. "15 minutes of racing gone. We've already done nearly 13 kilometres. This is flat out. Just to remind you then, we have 5 power-ups available to riders. They pick them up under the arch and then they hold on to them until they decide to use them, but they don't pick up a second power-up until they've got rid of the one they're holding. So there's an aero power-up. It's like an aero hatch you can see above the riders. In fact, one rider towards the front in the blue circle is using one right now. Makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. The draft is a van. Increases your draft effect by 50% for 30 seconds. The breakaway burrito is a brown coloured power-up above a rider. Makes you undraftable by the other riders for 10 seconds. The lightweight power-up is used on the climbs predominantly, 9.5 kilos lighter for 15 seconds, and then the cloak, the ghost, makes you invisible to others for 10 seconds. Now Greg Van Avermaet is in here from the CCC team, and he's looking for the victory, the Olympic champion. Let's hear now from the head of performance of CCC, Marco Pinotti.
When we plan the race, we try to get as many riders involved as possible from the team. So we don't have a very specific goal for the overall, but the goal is to have to give everybody the platform to take advantage of the visibility of the Tour de France. We will go with stage 1 with Greg Van Avermaet as our team leader, while in stage 2 we have 4 good riders, strong, that will look for their own chances in what I think is an open course.
Marco Pinotti, or the Professor as he was known in his career, now guiding the CCC team as the head of performance. So he goes with Greg Van Avermaet. As you can see, the various power-ups being used on this little climb. The green featherweight reduces the weight by 9.5 kilos for 15 seconds. So riders putting those into good effect here as we go uphill. Van Avermaet using one of them. He just sits down. Already getting towards the midway point of this stage. Freddie Ovett is the rider setting the pace on the front, doing over 6.3 watts per kilo. While Slaben, the cyclocross rider, is up there, and cyclocross riders will be very good at this sort of event because it's high intensity for 1 hour, and that's exactly what they train for. Freddie Ovett on the front. Coming alongside him now is Pavel Sivakov. Sivakov now puts in the aero power-up, making him more aerodynamic for 15 seconds as he starts to drag his way clear of the rest of the riders. Sivakov of Team Ineos, 22 years of age, winner of the Tour of Poland, winner of the Tour of the Alps. You can see the constant moving within this peloton, and it really does show you what how a peloton does move around, that washing machine effect at the front. And it's the same on Zwift. You have to be really on your game the entire race. You just cannot let anything go. I've ridden a couple of Zwift races during lockdown and they are so hard, extremely tough. Ovett sliding his way back into the draft to get a little bit of respite. There he is on the left-hand side. 2 fans blowing the hair. And 352 watts, over 100 revs per minute at the moment as he goes 43 kilometers an hour. And those fans, they are desperately needed. You get so hot. Looks like it's a very sunny outside as well. He's got all the blinds down, trying to be as cool as possible. physically demanding, mentally challenging as well. You really, when you talk to the pro riders about these races, they say you've mentally got to be in a very, very good place because this hurts, and it hurts a lot. Coming up then towards the second King of the Mountains, and Gastauer goes clear. Other riders moving up. One of the Alpecin Phoenix riders is going to try and take the points, and again it's Walsleben. Philip Walsleben, one of the World Cup cyclocross riders. Bosenhagen was also up there. And Freddie Ovett takes over at the front. Team NTT well represented this afternoon. Ryan Gibbons now goes to the front. Ryan Gibbons has been riding quite a lot of Zwift. He's done over 7,000 kilometres on Zwift. And in the last 7 days, he had done over 230k in preparation for today's race. Into the super tuck for these riders now. Van Kiersbroek goes to the front. Through the 1 kilometre to go point to complete this lap. At the end of lap number 2. .2 kilometres to go. It's nearly 18 kilometres covered in 21 minutes. 22 minutes coming up. Confirmation then of the climb. Walsleben took it ahead of Edvald Bosenhagen, with Ben Gastauer of AG Duzela Mondial in 3rd place. Darrell Impey towards the front. Breakaway burrito is put into play. A few riders putting in the draft power up as well. The van appearing above their heads. And Van Kiersbroek is going to be the rider who's going to lead across the line this time. On his wheel is Ryan Mullen, the Irish rider for Trek Segafredo. End of lap number 2. Matteo Dalcin was up there for Team Rally, 29 years of age, former Canadian road race champion. He's won a stage of the Tour of the Gila, a stage of the Tour de Beauce, and he's been, as I said, the Canadian road race champion. The stats on the screen then of Edvald Bosenhagen. Now, this rider knows Zwift and knows Zwift very, very well. So far in his riding in Zwift, because of course he spends an awful lot of time in a country and an area where he can't get outside to train, he has ridden 19,696 kilometres on Zwift and climbed 205,000 metres. He's one of the highest level riders, pro riders. He's level 44 on this platform. Stage winner, of course, in the Tour de France, and Bosenhagen could well be a stage winner this afternoon. Ryan Gibbons, one of his teammates, is near the front as well. Jonathan Castronoviecco, the superb time trialist in Team Ineos, he's near the front of the group. De Koning Quick-Step are also represented. So De Koning Quick-Step with Peter Seri. We're midway point now on stage number 1 of the virtual Tour de France for men. Let's hear now from that team director of Team NTT that we've been talking a lot about, Bingen Fernandez.
This virtual Tour de France is giving us another opportunity of racing, different kind of opportunity that is going to add some more excitement to the public, to the riders, to the fans. So it's a good challenge and we're ready for it. So the first stage is a flat stage, so it's a kind of dynamic stage where we're gonna have teams and people attacking, and then we're gonna have other teams that they wanna try to control the race directly into the sprint. So in our team we have Edvald Bosenhagen, who is our guy for that day.
Bingen Fernandez, the team director of Team NTT. Oh, he's highlighted his rider Edvald Bosenhagen as the possible winner this afternoon. Well, Bosenhagen just knows how this platform works, so there's a really good chance that he could take the victory. Don't forget, this afternoon you can decide who is the most combative rider of this race by going on to the Tour de France Twitter @Le Tour, and you can vote for who is going to be the most combative rider of today's race. Shelling now towards the front. Dion Smith takes over, heading towards the next of our points on the route, which is the third of our intermediate sprints. Darolympia's taken the first two. A few power-ups being ignited here. Who's going to be first across the line? Looks like a Jumbo-Visma rider, Mike Turnesen this time. Mike Turnesen takes it, I think. We'll get confirmation in a moment. Mike Turnesen, you think back to the first stage of the Tour de France last year when he managed to rescue the day of Jumbo-Visma in a spectacular way as we go onto the cobbles again. They were riding for Dylan Groenewegen, he crashed, and on the run to the finish Mike Turnesen chased the victory. We'll just get confirmation then. Sprint was taken by Turnesen ahead of Edvald Bosenhagen, with Van Herke in third, Van Avermaet in fourth, and Darolympi secures some more points for his Mitchelton Scott team. Yeah, Mike Turnesen secured, of course, a stage victory and the first yellow jersey of last year's race. Here's the replay. Turnesen using the power-up at a perfect moment to race across the line. Still a big group of riders left here. Thanks very much for joining us for the first ever virtual Tour de France. Vote now for your most combative rider @Le Tour, as Peter Seri and Edvald Bosenhagen are up towards the front of this peloton. We're on this virtual platform, simulated racing, but the riders still have to put in as much effort as you do if you're riding on the roads of the Tour de France. As you can see, Mike Turnesen there on the left-hand side at home, 338 watts, rolling along at 90 revs a minute. He's sitting in the draft of the rest of the peloton. The heart rate's still up at 165 beats per minute. So you can see how hard he's having to work just to stay in there at the moment. A steady 50 kilometers an hour. 28 minutes of racing, 23 kilometers covered. If you'd like to get in touch throughout this virtual Tour de France for men and women, please get in touch with me at Ant McCrossan on Twitter. We'll take some of your questions when we get a chance. All the riders at home or somewhere on a training camp, we're all at home too, which is the first ever experience of commentating from home, but it's very different, but we're all getting used to the new normal. As we see Mike Turnesen now rolling through to the front. Just behind him is Christian Sporagli, who is one of the riders of Alpecin Phoenix. Well, let's hear now from the team director of Mike Turnesen about his thoughts before today's stage. Let's hear now from Adi Engels.
Hi, I'm Adi Engels, Team Jumbo-Visma DS for the upcoming virtual Tour de France. Of course, we're really excited to be part of this race, although we also really look forward to do the real tour later this year. But this is a really nice alternative in July and a nice way for our riders to have some kind of competition. If you know our team, you know wherever we start, we always start to make the best of it, and that's no different in this race. And looking to the first stage, my pick would be Mike Teunissen. Of course, last year at the Tour, he won the first stage, took the yellow. He was going really strong in our own e-competition in May. And yeah, he's for sure one of my favorites.
The team director of Jumbo-Visma, Adi Engels, who picks Mike Teunissen as a possible winner this afternoon. Well, he's already starting to show that he's in good form. Jumbo-Visma here with Mike Teunissen, Antoine Tolic, Owen Gellian and Olav Kuj. Sweeney now on the front. Ryan Gibbons working his way through as well. So 3 intermediate sprints have happened. Darryl Impey's won 2 of them. We're getting close to the next climb of the day, and that is the climb on this Watopia hilly course. Sivakov is starting to get into this ride now. During lockdown, I rode one afternoon when Pavel Sivakov was on this platform, and he was giving us a little bit of insight. He said he'd taken part in some races on the platform itself, but he hadn't managed to win one of them so far, and that was against the amateur riders on Zwift. So he was trying to work out how they were managing to beat him so much. An attack now from Ben Gastauer of Agi Désert Mondial. He put into place what we call the breakaway burrito, which is another power-up that can be used by him. So he has used that very well. It means he can break away 10 seconds as we now see the top of the climb, and a big sprint, and Walsleben was up there, but Freddie Ovett takes the climb ahead of Walsleben, who again scores points in the top 2. 3 riders going away. So that breakaway burrito that Gastauer used makes him undraftable by any riders for 10 seconds. So if you put it in place at the right time, you can get a little bit of a gap. 3 riders going clear now though. Freddie Ovett is one of them. As we work our way down to 1 lap to go. Ovett goes into the super top. There you go, left-hand side. He's not even pedaling now. He's got himself up to speed. He can now just let himself recover. He can take a drink. Then he'll start to kick on now and make sure he stays in the group as everyone comes back to him. It's a really good use of his knowledge of this platform. He'll get himself into the draft, and then he'll be okay. So he's done that really well. Alex Dowsett in here at the back, the former hour record holder. Here's the sprint, and Freddie Ovett takes it from Walsleben. Then Gastauer in 4th place. Looks like one of the Trek Segafredo team in 3rd as they made their way across the top. In fact, it was the Lotto Soudal rider, so it was Sweeney who took 3rd place that time. Ovett is starting to accumulate some points on the King of the Mountains. Through the line then, 1 lap of racing to go, 9.2 kilometres remain. Matteo Dalcin of the team of Rally is now on the front. Featherweights being ignited. Mathieu van der Poel is also up there. Don't forget to see who you think the most combative rider of the afternoon is. Go on Twitter @LeTour. One of the riders has put the ghosting cloak on, which means that he can now break away without any riders seeing him. Mathieu van der Poel's stats up on the screen, 105 revs a minute. So he's having to spin along nicely. There he is. What a pedaling style this rider has. Who will ever forget him winning that incredible finish to Amstel Gold, world champion of cyclocross, winner of Dwars door Vlaanderen, winner of Brabantse Pijl. I'm lucky enough to watch him all winter on World Cup cyclocross. He is one special rider. Is he going to win this afternoon? Well, we had a surprise in the women's race. Will we get a surprise in the men's? Thanks for all your messages this afternoon on Twitter. Matthew Cox, thanks for your message, for watching. If you'd like to get in touch through the 6 stages at Ant McCrossan is where you can get me on Twitter. Peter Seri now of De Koenig Quickstep is up towards the front. Roman Seacard is also there, so is Bosenhagen. Witkowski has not gone on the attack at all. He's always been there or thereabouts. The next sprint is at 30.18 kilometres. Daryl Impey has scored 2 maximum points there. Mike Turnerson has scored 1 of them. Rally Cycling, I know, are really up for this event over the next 6 stages. Van Rensburg puts on the van draft there, trying to go away. Just a reminder then, the little power up comes above the rider's avatar, increases the draft effect by 50% for 30 seconds. And Van Rensburg now going clear. Gets a bit of an advantage, 4 seconds now on Daryl Impey. Look at the watts he's putting in. 519 watts as he breaks away. So he's going to make his way down to the JWB bridge. Through the sprint point and then head to the cobbles by the Italian villas. Heading to the final intermediate sprint. Van Rensburg, behind him 1 member of the Lotto Soudal team, but maximum points taken by Van Rensburg for the NTT squad. Sweeney of Lotto Soudal in 2nd place. Sweeney's had a great race so far. Daryl Impey comes back up to him. Also up there, Gibbons. It's all the same names at the front now, isn't it? Van Avermaet is there. Edvald Bosenhagen, Nick Schultz. But who is going to win the first stage? Coming up towards the front now is Philip Valsleben again, getting ready for the final King of the Mountains of this stage. The first stage of the first ever virtual Tour de France. There's a replay. Van Rensburg ahead of the 2nd place rider, Sweeney. And the peloton not too far behind, which has thinned out quite considerably now. We started with 92 riders. Van der Poel's got 2 teammates in here at the moment. Confirmation of sprint 4. Van Rensburg of NTT took it ahead of Sweeney, Van Avermaet, Impey and Ryan Mullen. At the front now, Mikhail Kwiatkowski, world champion, winner Milano-San Remo. He's ridden over 4,500 kilometres nearly on Zwift. Also winner Strade Bianche. Strade Bianche could be the first race that we have when we get back to the start of the season. Let's hope so. Sivakov also up here. So we also have a couple of riders in this group. Also in here, Gorka Izagirre. Mitchelton Scott have the green jersey with 26 points to NTT's 25. So it looks like the work done by Daryl Impey means they will have green. Now we've got to decide about the King of the Mountains. The final King of the Mountains point comes up at 34.91 kilometers covered. We've done 32.6. Now the outside for this afternoon could be Pierre-André Cote of Team Rally. Watch out for him. He's in the group, and I've noticed that he's been sitting towards the front of the group all of the race. 23 years of age. He's a very, very keen Zwifter. Really times his power-ups to the best possible effect. Finished second in the Tour for all stage 4. He doesn't have the power that some of these riders has, but he has the tactical awareness on Zwift. Edvald Boasson-Hagen working hard. His bench press machine in the background. You can tell how hard this rider trains. Over 19,000 kilometers on this platform. Look how hard he's working now. Heart rate 181 beats per minute. He knows only 3.5 kilometers of racing to go. I think I just saw Greg Van Avermaet dropping away. Also finding it tough at the moment is Mike Turnerson. The pace is on at the front. Sivakov is putting in some power. 7.2 watts per kilo at the moment for Sivakov. On his wheel is Nick Schultz. Behind him is Sweeney. Then Freddie Ovett of Israel Startup Nation. Kwiatkowski is up there. Gavin Mannion is also there. So is Boasson-Hagen. Mathieu van der Poel is also up there. Kwiatkowski goes to the front now for Team Ineos. So 42 minutes of racing, 33.9 kilometers already covered. We're only 3k from the finish. And here's the stats of the riders, the maximum power output of each of these teams in the first 25 kilometers. And look at that. Greg Van Avermaet's maximum power output in the first 25k, 939 watts. It's a little bit of a gap in this group now. Around 12, 15 riders opening up an advantage. 2.6 kilometers to go. We're near the King of the Mountains point. Remember, Valsleben took the first two. Ovett took the third, but Valsleben took second place. So now it's about whether Valsleben can secure some points here. It looks like he's a little bit further back. Has he got a power up to take him to the front? If you're just joining us now, this is the first ever stage of the first ever virtual Tour de France. We had a great women's race, and now we're getting close to the end of the men's. Combativity prize is Daryl Impey this afternoon. No surprises there. So Mitchelton Scott pick up the combativity as we make our way over the top of the climb. And it looked like an Alpecin Fenix rider may well have been right at the front as Nick Schultz takes over. Only 1.7 kilometers to go. We get ourselves ready. Who's going to win the stage? Now it's all about how much you've got left and whether you've got any power-ups to use on the running. Remember, the aero power-up is really useful. The breakaway power-up could be useful. Lightweight as well. Into the super tuck. Just trying to get the legs feeling good for the final sprint. There are some power bike riders in here. Downhill, right over the top of the climb. Who took it? Looks to me like an Alpecin Fenix rider. Could have been Valsleben. We'll get confirmation of that in a moment. If he took it, then that means that he will have the King of the Mountains jersey for his squad. So it was Nick Schultz who took it for Mitchelton Scott, but Valsleben took second again. So judging just a quick reckoner in my head, Valsleben should have taken the King of the Mountains for his team. He's accumulated so many points. We're downhill. We're into the aero power up with Van Keersbroek of CCC. Behind him is Kwiatkowski. Bosenhagen is now up towards the front. A little bit of a move. Who's going to take it? A huge sprint now in towards the finish for Ryan Gibbons. Ryan Gibbons of Team NTT. Ryan Gibbons is the rider who takes the sprint there on the first stage of the virtual Tour de France. Ryan Gibbons of Team NTT. A huge sprint. We'll get confirmation in a moment that it was him, but that was such a big sprint by Ryan Gibbons. There he is. His avatar, Ryan Gibbons, takes stage number 1. Well, he trained for it. He'd done 230 kilometers on Zwift in the last few days. There he is, just warming down. 230k on here in the last few days. Ryan Gibbons very, very happy with that. Look at the effort. This simulated bike racing is not easy at all, is it? Well, he got that sprint absolutely right. Just shows you in terms of the sprint, you have to get it absolutely timed perfectly. So Ryan Gibbons first across the line. I think he put a power up into play just as he came round that bend. Well, we'll hear from Ryan in a few moments' time. We had a great women's race, April Tacey taking that for Team Drops. And here is the classification. Ryan Gibbons takes the victory. I did mention the rider in second place, Pierre-André Cote of Team Rally in second, Nick Schultz in third for Mitchelton Scott, Mathieu van der Poel in fourth for Alpecin Phoenix, and then it was Freddie Ovett and Edvald Bosenhagen. It's all going to come down to, remember, the points, because Ryan Gibbons has got 50 points for that win, and then his team combining to give them the yellow jersey if that's at all possible. It's a team competition for yellow, but there's no doubt about the stage winner. Here's the run in towards the finish. The aero power up used by the rider in front. Van Avermaet was there. Kwiatkowski was in second place. Van Kiersbroek tried to break away. But as we got to the last few hundred meters, this is the moment he did. He ignited a power up, the aero power up for Ryan Gibbons. And behind him, I think was closing in Van der Poel, but Gibbons used that power up at the perfect time. Daryl Impey then the most combative rider of the day. Just to tidy that up for you, the green jersey will go to Mitchelton Scott as well, and the King of the Mountains, by my working out, I think will go to the team of Alpecin Phoenix. So I guess it will either go onto the shoulders of Wals Slaben or the shoulders of Mathieu van der Poel, because remember, it's all about the team classification on points. In a few moments then we'll hear from Ryan Gibbons of Team NTT in our first ever virtual Tour de France. Let us know what you thought about today's stages for the men and women. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, with stage number 2, which again is on Watopia. And then we move into the French stages next weekend. Take a look also at Le Tour on Twitter, because there's all the details about Tour United, and the hashtag is TDF United, and that's because we are trying to raise as much money as possible for 5 cycling-related charities, and that's where you can help. Earlier on today, we had the first of our L'Étape du Tour, which has already secured its maximum number of 40,000 riders registered to take part in 16 rides on this platform over the next couple of weeks. Some replays then of the King of the Mountains points. And of course, Darrell Impey securing lots of points early on for team of Mitchelton Scott. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our first ever virtual Tour de France. Simulated racing, which, as you can see from the cameras we've had on all the riders across the world, wherever they are, being at home and riding this event, this is not easy at all. Over the 6 stages, we will ride 228.4 kilometers on Zwift. We will finish on the Champs-Élysées on stage number 6. Tomorrow we ride 29.5 kilometers on a mountain stage on Watopia. But let's join now the winner of stage number 1 of the first ever virtual Tour de France, Ryan Gibbons of Team NTT. Ryan, many congratulations. Summarise for me your feelings about winning our first ever stage of a virtual Tour de France.
Oh, truly, truly overwhelmed. I mean, it's such a great initiative, and it's really exciting to have something like this. I bet everyone's been missing a lot of racing. I know we have, and yeah, to be not only part of it, but to win the first stage, it's truly special.
Talk me through that run into the finish, because this is extremely demanding, isn't it? It looked to me like you ignited a power-up with just a few meters to go.
Yeah, a very, very tough route. So that final climb, you know, cresting that 2Ks to the finish. So I think everyone's pretty toast at the top of that, and then kind of saving a little bit for the downhill, and then fortunately having a power-up, I could go. Quite a fast run-in, so I had to go quite early. But yeah, just once I went, I knew I had to keep going. So quite a long sprint, but yeah, happy to put it off.
And the fans watching at home, we've had cameras on you, obviously, this afternoon and watching you. Just how tough is this compared to, okay, it's not as long as a stage of a Grand Tour, but how tough is it? Because it looks brutal.
There's no respite, you know, like you say, it's not close to the length as a normal Grand Tour stage, but you know, in a Grand Tour, it's not flat out racing from start to finish. You know, there's a lot of times where you can kind of recover and you can have a chat with your friends kind of thing, where kind of from when you clip into the finish line, it's absolutely full gas. And, you know, it's also, it comes down to pure power. So yeah, it's really, really ruthless, very, very tough. Not one easy second in that race. So glad it's finished.
Great. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you for talking to us, and very well done, the winner of stage 1 of the virtual Tour de France.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great to hear the insight from Ryan Gibbons as to his thoughts on that stage victory. You can see he's still trying to recover. That was very, very tough indeed. It might only be 36.4 kilometres, but it's 36.4 kilometres of flat-out effort. Here's the team classification. NTT with 80 points. Rally with 79, and Alpecin Fenix with 72. So the fanfare of the Tour de France, as always, that we get that buzz from, fades in the background, and NTT have the stage winner of this year's race. Stage number 1 of the virtual Tour de France. Ryan Gibbons with that huge effort on the run-in to the finish line. Rally Cycling, well, they've got the wildcard invite and they produced second place with 79 points. I did say Pierre-André Cote is a rider we should definitely watch out for. Ryan Gibbons then will recover, but I'm sure Team NTT, the African team, will be extremely pleased with that performance today. They had so much involvement in the action. There's a confirmation of the points classification. So because of the finish line, NTT also take the green jersey. Mitchelton Scott second actually, and CCC in third place. So the green jersey will go to the team of NTT, and their team captain will wear that tomorrow. The yellow jersey on their shoulders as well. Mitchelton Scott in second place, so the points accumulated at the finish means that the green jersey will go onto their shoulders. Well, thank you very much to all of you for joining us for the first ever virtual Tour de France. Don't forget, join us tomorrow for stage number 2, 29.5 kilometres here on Watopia. Bye for now.